Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. Stand out, don't fit in. Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. Today I have the real pleasure to be speaking with a business coach who is with the world's largest business coaching firm, Action Coach. He has run his coaching business for 5 years now and works with all types and sizes of businesses. During these times of crisis that we're experiencing at the moment, he has been helping the business community with free webinars and one-to-one meetings with business owners to help them get through this tough time. Nik Gray, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to be speaking with you today.
Thank you, Aggie. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure, and I also, because I introduced you as having one-to-one meetings with business owners, so we had a little private session before we started recording, so my appreciation and my gratitude for that straight away.
I enjoyed it. It was really good.
Nik, I want to start by asking you to give us some brief introduction. Mainly what I would like you to share with us is one or two maybe key defining moments in your journey that have led you to where you are today.
Oh, wow. That's hit me with a big one. That's a great question.
You were giving some great questions to me earlier on when you were coaching me, so it's my turn now to reciprocate.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of what I do is, well, there's three types of coaches. You've got a life coach, and you've got a business consultant, and you've got a sports coach. And I think a business coach is a combination of all three of those. So you've got the accountability from a sports coach, you've got the toolbox of a business consultant, and you need to deal with the mindset of like a life coach as well, because so much. Well, I'm a great believer that there's so much in mindset that has a big impact on what we do, and no more so your confidence. And I suppose I remember back, I don't know when I came to this realization, maybe when I first sort of started managing people, or when I was managed by people, I don't know, but that confidence has a massive impact on your ability to do things. Mm-hmm. And what I do with Action Coach, I'm continuously learning and reading and developing myself to learn more. And just came off a call before this actually with a guy who was saying that he thinks you generally need to see something 6 or 7 times before it all clicks and makes sense. And I jokingly said maybe it's a few more times for me, but mm-hmm. The confidence thing, I think, is such an impact on anybody. And when you learn a bit more about what's behind that, and the self-talk that we have that you were referring to in our conversation before, and how much that impacts you, and just what you can do about it, you know, and that really interests me. The more I read and learn about that, and how you can, you know, you're in control of your own life. And I think that's a fundamental rule, that when you stop blaming and stop making excuses and start taking responsibility for what's happening in your life, mm-hmm. and taking ownership of what's happening in your life, then you're in control. And I think that was a realization that I had when I was younger as well. Well, over time, because we spent a lot of time blaming when we're younger, and a lot of people continue to do so. But it's a fundamental. You need to start taking ownership and responsibility for things, for things to change in your life.
Was there any particular event that caused you or triggered that for you? You said it took a period of time. I'm just asking in case we can isolate a milestone of some sort.
I'm not sure there is. Maybe I've got a mental block. Maybe I've got there would be. I think any number of my life's not been particularly, you know, exciting or groundbreaking. You know, some people say, "Oh, well, I did this and I did that." maybe I'm just underestimating my life, but I think there's been a lot of little events where one thing that I do is reflect. I always have done, and it's not necessarily a great thing to do, to keep going over things, but in my life I've always reflected and generally gone over things. Oh, I should have done that better, I should have done that differently. And so that's given me the opportunity to look back and change. And I'm quite critical of other people, but what that also brings me the opportunity to look at myself. So I might look at you and dislike something that you've done and think, well, that's done like that. And then I'll immediately look at myself, oh, do I do that? And then I'll look at putting that right in myself. If I see it in myself, then I'll look at putting that right. Mm-hmm. So I can't answer for the specific time or place, but maybe over many instances.
No, it's that's fine. And what you said, I completely agree about the reflection and every time that something annoys us in others, it's something that we need to work within ourselves, because it's the others just reflect back what we are. So if something annoys us, there's something inside of us that gets triggered by a behavior or a trait. Nick, there are two, let's say, directions that I want our conversation to go today with your being a business coach. One is generally about business coaching, and then afterwards, more specifically, with what's going on with the lockdown and the coronavirus and many people's businesses being completely disrupted. So I will start with some general topics. And one thing that made an impression on me when I was reading a bit about what you do is that you say that the challenges that most business owners face fall into the same three categories, which is the time, money, and get more from their team. So I want you to expand a bit on that and share your wisdom with us.
Yeah, okay, Maggie. So if we look at those three, the time is what I'm referring to there is when business owners are just caught up in the business. The business is just too reliant on them, where they're working long hours, and we generally get into business because we want some freedom. If we look at most business owners, they will start a business because of one of two reasons. Either they're fed up of working for somebody else, or they get made redundant and they have to work for themselves. And the problem with this is that our education system is designed, well, it's Victorian. It's designed to get people into jobs. It was just designed to set, and it hasn't changed over the last 150 years. It's still doing the same role. And with that, it's just funneling people in to be better and better at one thing. So we get better and better and better, and we stay in one job most of the time until we get more and more skilled at that job. So we get so skilled, we don't know what else we can do. So we go and eventually set up a business as that. But what the downside of that is our education system doesn't teach us things like finance and admin in business or sales and marketing. So we don't necessarily have those skills to be able to create a business. We can create a job, and often quite a successful job, but it's reliant on us. Mm-hmm. So we have to be in the business. And so that's where someone like myself comes in to help those business owners with the areas that they're not so skilled in, which is nobody's fault apart from our education system. So that involves time, because they're involved in everything. So they perhaps need some more skills about systemizing the business, time management, about management and leadership and delegation. And these three things, time, team, and money, are all linked. If you have more money, you can get more people to get more time. Mm-hmm. If you have more time, you can perhaps work on the strategies to get more money. And if you work on getting more from your people, then you'll get more money, and that will give you more time. So they are all interlinked. But the money might be they want more sales. It might be that they need more profit. Right now, it's probably they need more cash flow. And then the people, it's the productivity. there's the stats are out there, but something like only 30% of people are actually engaged in their job. So the rest of the people are either don't care one way or the other, or actively disengaged. So if you think of it as a boat, and the engaged people are rowing forward, the ones who don't really mind, they're not going one way or the other. But at the back end, you've got the disengaged people are actually rowing the other direction. So quite often you're just going nowhere. So getting your people properly engaged and motivated and living, taking ownership and living your vision to help move the business to where you want to get to. And one of the key problems with that is just business owners not knowing exactly where they want to get to, because we're just focused on where we are right now. And if we don't know where we want to take the business, then how can other people help us get there?
That's great. So in terms of getting more from their team or engaging the people who work for you more, what are your thoughts on that? Can it be done with anyone, or do you need some people who have values that are more aligned to your business goals?
Yeah, but that's a really good point there, where you're talking about aligned to your business goals and your values. So when we're talking about setting the vision for the business, we also want to talk about what are the values for the business. And when we know the values for the business, in fact, let me ask you this. Have you ever worked with somebody who just you didn't get on with, or they didn't work out?
Yes.
But when we look at it, their values probably weren't the same as yours. So whether they just didn't have integrity, or they weren't professional, or they didn't turn up on time, or whatever it is, their values didn't link with yours. So right at the recruitment stage, that's where we want to align our values with people who are coming on board. So we start off there. But if we've already got a team, then we need to set our values up. A good thing to do is to get your team involved in defining the values of the business. What are our core values here? What do we believe in? Some of the core values for Action Coach, things like ownership, communication, integrity, commitment, teamwork, fun, balance. We've got a lot of values. We've got 14. You don't need that many in a business. Most businesses need perhaps 3 to 7. But if you get your team, people will own something they've got to taken a part in creating. So if we get our team involved in defining our values, they'll live them. And that's one of the challenges we used to have in the corporate world, is that the values would be dictated down from above, and people will end up laminating them, not living them. That's what we'd say. So they get laminated and stuck in your drawer and forgotten about. But we want people to live the values, and for that you need to celebrate them. So regularly catch people doing something right. Celebrate each week and each month who was the best person at teamwork this month, who was the best person at showing ownership this month, or whatever your values are, celebrating those. So getting the right people to start with, in answer to your question, at the recruitment stage, getting people to live the values, and managing people, leading people and managing people. So by leadership, I mean setting clear direction. If you think about the word lead, it's being out in front, setting clear direction. Management is more about getting competent and productive people. So they need to know what their tasks are. Just by, if the manager sits down next to the person who's reporting to them, and they both sit down and write, right, well, what's your 10 priorities each day? If they both were to write that, the manager writing what he thinks it is, and the employee thinking what he or she thinks it is, if they're not aligned, then they're not going to be productive. Because if they don't both think they should be doing the same thing. So something as simple as that can have a big impact. Knowing what their key responsibilities are, and giving them measurements about that, and reporting daily just what how they're getting on with those. Simple things like that, leadership and management, really have a big impact on productivity and engagement in the team. And it's more important than ever right now. I mean, linking on to what you said about how we are with the coronavirus, a lot of businesses are working remotely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm running a series of free webinars at the moment, which you mentioned. And next week, I'm running a webinar on Thursday on how to lead remotely and some of the skills that you need to. And the fundamental principles about leadership haven't changed, but there's some other questions we need to ask people. Things like, how do I know if they're really working? You know, how are they getting all the human interaction that they need? Am I getting enough feedback to consider certain options? Mm-hmm. These sort of things, and are they measured correctly? But yeah, lots at play with that. Certainly, every general work, but also with where we're going now with working remotely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I'm actually going to ask more about the other two, because we covered about the team quite a lot. But what about, you mentioned about having the systems to move from working constantly in your business to working on the business. Are the systems something that can be implemented in all kinds of businesses, you think, or are there limitations?
No, absolutely. Systems, and when we talk about systems, we're not talking about ISO 9001, although that is great for putting systems in business. It could be simple checklists. Mm-hmm. You think about what pilots do every time they want to take off from an airport. What do? They run through a checklist.
Yeah.
And that's, if it's good enough for pilots, it should be good enough for us. They do that because they want to get it right. And systems about consistency, so that we know it's done the same every time. So you don't have to be there as the business owner, standing over somebody, making sure it's done, because there's a system in place to get it right. So a checklist can be just as, a simple way of producing a system or a process. You can, in McDonald's, they have pictures everywhere. So this is a picture of where to put the gherkin on the bun. This is a picture of, it sounds, but they're the most systemized business in the world. And it's consistently the same wherever they go, isn't it? Whether it's in Manchester or Moscow, it's the same stuff because they use systems.
Yeah. And what about increasing the sales, the profit? Is it a matter of marketing, or is there something else involved too?
Well, there's 5 key areas to improving the profitability of the business, and you mentioned they are number of leads, your conversion rate, number of transactions, average sale, and profit margins. Mm-hmm. So the number of leads, that's your marketing. How do we get the leads coming in? Now, a lead is somebody who's interested in your product or service. So have they called the office, or have they gone onto the website, or sent you an email? That's a lead. Now, the conversion rate is how many of those get converted into customers. So these are just 2 areas to work on. Conversion rate, there's many strategies you can use for that. Just some sales training for you and your team can help convert more. Just measuring it will help you convert more. With lead generation, testing and measuring. So if you've got a marketing strategy, whether that's social media or you're phoning people or you're networking, testing and measuring what you're doing. So if you put a post out, test that post and measure the results. Then test another one with a slightly different headline and then measure the results. If you keep doing that, then you can see what works and what doesn't. And eventually you've got a marketing strategy where it works, so you can just turn it on and turn it off again. Mm-hmm. The other things I mentioned there about number of transactions, repeat business. Repeat business is where profit comes from in business. So it's no more important than right now, really looking after your existing customers, giving them a wow, over servicing your customers. Right now, I'm speaking to my clients many times a week, just doing what I can to help them. But just going over and above what you normally would do with your clients right now to get through this situation. The other point there is the average sale. Where that's important is because have you ever heard people say, "Oh, I didn't know you did that"? You know, where people just don't know everything you do. So it's communicating and upselling and again, that's where sales training can come in. But I don't know, we've got something like 300 different strategies on those 5 areas. So there's lots of things to talk about. So I could keep going all day, but you get the point.
Of course, yeah, and thank you. So I will ask you something similar but slightly different. You say that there are 3 areas to focus on to get results personally, but also in a business. And you mentioned the mindset, strategy, and accountability. So can you clarify this for us?
Yeah. Most of my clients are intelligent people. They've got businesses that have done well and they'll probably continue to do well. And they know what they should be doing, but they're not always doing what they know they should be doing. And so, yes, there's an element of showing them new strategies and teaching them new things, but often it's just getting them to do what they know they should be doing. And having someone there, you know, if you've ever had a personal trainer in a gym, you know, that personal trainer gets you to lift the weights 1 more rep than you probably would have done on your own, or lift a weight slightly heavier than you would, or run that bit further. And that's what a coach is there for, you know, whether it's in sports or whether it's in business. We get you to do the things that you probably wouldn't do on your own for whatever reason. So the accountability is a massive part of what we do as coaches. It's having somebody there to hold you to account. And we always start off with what the business owner wants personally. So that the first session, an alignment session with us, is setting out what they want in their life personally, or what do they want? What's this for? Because often we get confused. We might start off in business because we want freedom, but end up our business goals get mixed up with our personal goals, and it's just business goals. So what do you want personally? Do you want to have more family time? Do you want to have a nice house? Do you want to spend more time with the family? Whatever it is. And then what's the business need to do to help you achieve that? And then we've got personal and business goals.
And what about the mindset?
Sorry, I forgot where I was going with it. So let me just come back to my point there. So once we've got the personal, the reason why it's important to have these personal goals is for you, Aggie. If you said that it's, you know, my personal goal is to be able to have this time off with my family every month or every week or whatever, and you decide that some of the actions you're going to take this week are going to get you there, then next week, if you haven't done these actions in your business, then I'll hold the mirror up to you and say, well, listen, Aggie, how's that going to help you get to your goal, which is spending time with your family? And that's the accountability, just holding that mirror up.
Shall we talk a little bit more specific now about what we're going through, what humanity is going through, and business owners are going through, pretty much everyone, with the disruption that the epidemic has caused. So what do you advise now your clients? It's a very general question, but I'm going to go more specific in a moment. But what do you think is essential for this era we're living in?
Well, I think there's 3 key areas. I mean, it's a lot more than that. I've been doing webinars on the 11 steps business owners need to take to get their business to survive this, and then ultimately to thrive out the other side. 3 areas perhaps are, you know, the leadership and leading your business or your customers. The second area is about getting your finances right, and the third area is how we come out of this better the other side. I think fundamentally one of the first areas is positive communication. It's so important, whether you've got your team furloughed or you've got a team working remotely or your customers or your suppliers, we've got to be communicating 10 times as much as what we used to be doing. Furloughed employees are going to be worried about their future. So we need to be communicating with them in some manner, maybe daily, even if it's a text message or a WhatsApp group. Our employees who are still working, if they're working remotely, we want to be communicating with them 3 times a day, ideally, in the morning, checking what everyone's got to do, a check-in at midday, how we're getting on, and then what everyone's done or not done at the end of the day. And with our customers, through all our mediums, social media, all our platforms, communicate with them as much as possible. Let them know what's going on. Let them know what we're doing, that we're still here. Ask them how we can help them. And our suppliers as well. Just communicate and communicate. And we do need to be, as leaders, we need to be the most positive person in the room. And that's quite tough. And this is something I know that you talk about a lot, is about how you keep that positive mindset. And it's difficult currently. But one thing you could do is stop watching so much news. I generally don't watch the news. I have got more involved in the news recently because I've needed to know what's going on for the businesses that I've been speaking to. But just keep to the basics. Don't get sucked into it. It's too easy to get watching too much news, and it'll have a negative impact on you. Also, look after yourself. Look after your health and your own well-being. What are you doing if you are stuck at home working, get away from the screen from time to time. Go out into the garden, get some vitamin D on your body. Stay hydrated. Do some exercising. Do some dancing with the kids. Whatever it is, but stay healthy, because people are relying on you. So yeah, that's the key. I mean, if you want me to go on with a couple more points,
I want you to expand about the thriving on the other side. Not because obviously surviving is the first step, but somehow most people hopefully will survive. What about thriving though? Because that's really what is important. Because in every adversity, I will just quote. It's one of my favorite quotes by Napoleon Hill, who said that in every adversity carries within it the seed of an equal or greater opportunity. So thriving, finding what the opportunity is among this challenging situation is extremely important.
And I think another example of that is the Chinese symbol for crisis. It's made up of 2 parts. One stroke means danger and one stroke means opportunity. And so there is opportunity in everything. And first of all, we have to understand we've got to survive this. So we've got to do the basics about getting our financials in place, making sure we're doing a cash flow forecast to know worst case scenario and that we can see through this. Make sure that we're getting every government benefit that we can at the moment, looking out for the business disruption loan to get that. So get all our finances right and be prepared for this. But to thrive at the other side, there's 2 things. We need to pivot and change. What can we do differently? So instead of just looking for one golden bullet that's going to change everything, give us 100% of what we need, it might be 100 different 1% changes that are small pivots. So we might need to sell online because we weren't selling online before. We definitely need to sell online now. It might be that we need to offer different services to our clients. How can we change? There's lots of business out there that are thriving at the moment, are booming. How can we adjust what we're doing to help them? So there was a gym I heard of that when it closed down, rented out all its bikes, its stationary bikes to its members, and as running virtual classes online. And you hear lots of stories about pubs that are becoming farm shops now and delivering food. So how can we pivot and change? What can we do differently to change and thrive, to innovate? That's the word I was looking for.
You read my mind. I was about to say the word innovation comes to mind with what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's innovate, and we've got to change, and change will happen, and lots of good things will come from this, not least virtual working, in my opinion. So that's a positive thing. The other thing is marketing. Now, as part of surviving, we want to cut down a lot of our costs. But the danger is with that is some people will cut their marketing costs, because they see it as a cost. Whereas if we did what we mentioned earlier about testing and measuring your marketing, then you'll see it as an investment. And now more than ever, we need to be marketing. Our message may well change because people's buying habits will change, and we need to be sensitive to what people are going through. But definitely, if you've got something that adds value to people and people need, you should be marketing and telling people about it. Excuse me. All this talk about the coronavirus has given me a... So yes, marketing is change, and marketing, definitely. And people have said, well, I don't feel comfortable about selling. I think it's just having conversations with people. Now is a great time to build relationships, whatever happens, whether you sell or not. But asking questions of people and asking how they're doing and listening may well lead to opportunities. And if you've got something that will help that person, that's what true selling is. Selling is professionally helping people to buy. What a lot of people think is where you force somebody to take something that they don't need, and that's not what we want to do anyway. So, but if what you've got helps somebody, then don't be ashamed to sell. You're providing jobs for people, and you're helping your customers as well. So yeah, sell and market.
That's great. Thank you for that, Nick. Obviously, there are many businesses that they can actually pivot and have a more intense online presence or change their delivery of the product or the service. But there are other businesses that don't really have that option. For example, hairdressers or a dental practice or even a restaurant, even though maybe for a restaurant you could offer some deliveries. But what's your advice on businesses that don't really have the option of offering the service online at all? You can't cut someone's hair online.
I think what we need to do is just really deeply think of what we can do. So a landscape gardener I was speaking to, he can't go and he is cutting some people. He's going to some people's garden. He's going to see some elderly people and doing social distancing, but helping them. And what he's also doing is he's going online through social media and he's helping people with free advice on how to look after their gardens, because everyone's in their garden at the moment, spending time in their garden. So right now he can be the expert and giving them free advice. And this is how you do. Call me if you've got a question about your garden. And he's the expert. And then guess what? When they go back to work, they haven't got time to do their garden anymore, but they love him. Who's going to get a phone call to come and do the garden? And could hairdressers do the same thing? Everyone's at home, not being able to cut anybody's hair. What advice could they give? Is there, thinking laterally or outside the box, what could we do differently? Even if it's just free advice to become the expert, so that when we do get back to normal, then you're the person that people go to, because your competition won't be doing this. Your competition won't be marketing. It's highly likely they won't. So what can you do to be at the forefront of people's minds right now?
I like that. You mentioned earlier about building relationship, and now what I get from what you just said is about getting on people's mind space about, yes, I can't operate right now, but I'm here, and eventually this situation will finish. And when you have built the relationship and have offered value to people, they will certainly look into coming to you. Makes sense.
That positive thinking as well, isn't it? We look for, if you're watching the news and you're seeing all the negativity, then you're not going to be open-minded to look for these new ways. But if you're searching out positive news and wins and celebrating wins and finding businesses that are having success in doing this, you might get some inspiration from that, and you might start thinking, oh, actually, there is a way. What if I did this, and what if I did that? But it's feeding your mind with the right stuff so that it's not negative.
It's one of my mantras, Nick, that is to what goes in goes out. So if you feed your mind with negativity and watch the news, only negativity will come out. It will manifest through your thoughts and your actions and your emotions. There's nothing positive that can come out. So
absolutely, and it's a law that whatever you're doing, you'll do more of. So if you're just stationary, you'll stay stationary. But if you can get yourself going, even if it's the little things, if you can start thinking about, well, what little thing can I do? Once you're going, you'll keep going. If you can get people going. So one of the things as being a coach, if you and I are talking and you set an action, I'll get you to be clear on what the first 3 steps to get that going, because otherwise if the goal looks too big, subconsciously you won't get going. And you asked about people earlier on in teams, and that's another great point for teams to when you're managing people, is just to get them to think about what are the first few steps they need to be taken to get things going, and get them thinking for themselves as opposed to you always having to give them the answers.
Yeah. Nick, thanks. This has been very useful. There's one other question which is slightly off topic, and it's the behavioral profiling, the DISC, and which I find fascinating. When I first discovered about how broadly you can divide, shall we say, or classify, that's a better word, classify people in 4 categories with a personality, how much it made sense. So can you just give me a brief introduction to that, and how it has, when you studied it, how it has changed your interactions with people and your coaching business?
Well, I was just looking for something that I'd seen, here we go, on that's relevant. So DISC is a behavioural profiling tool, which helps you understand why people behave in a certain way. And we think we're all unique. There are just 4 different behavioural styles. We are a blend of them all, so it does allow for a lot of individuality. But essentially, we're one of 4. So either we're dominant, which is very outgoing and assertive. We're influential, who is very people focused but still outgoing. Or we're stable. We like things the same way. Still, again, very people focused, but they're also very introvert. And finally, as you are, perhaps more compliant and very likes the detail, and they're very task focused as well, but also very introverted. But on those 4, I had this that came up, which was the high Ds, which are the outgoing types. Social distancing means the end of small talk. Let's get right to the point and split as soon as we make a deal. That's fine for high Ds, because they don't like a lot of chat. For high Is, who are very people-focused people, social distancing means no hugs, no high fives. This is totally unfair, but now I've got a few special waving and air gestures to get everyone's attention. The high S, who are the more stable types, social distancing on top of working remotely. It's too much for me. All these changes stress me out intensely, and I really just need a hug. And then finally, this is the one you might relate to, the high C's. Finally, people would take their noses off my personal space. Social distancing must become a permanent rule.
It's maybe it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I like it.
Yeah, so that sort of brings it all relevant.
That's great. Nick, let me ask you some quick fire questions as well. Okay, what does personal development mean to you?
Reading, I suppose, is the first thing that comes to my head. Reading or listening to books. Just being open to as much as possible. So yeah, reading, listening, watching videos, taking new knowledge in.
Sure. If you could go back in time and meet your 20-year-old self, what's the one piece of advice you would give him?
I would that's fundamental about taking responsibility and ownership. And not blaming. Because I definitely didn't understand that at the age of 20. So perhaps understanding that a bit sooner would have helped.
I agree, makes all the difference in your life, because you are responsible. Then you have the power. If others dictate what you do, then you are helpless in your mind to do that. Yeah. Let's say you had a magic wand and you could wave it and change something in the world as it is today. What would that be?
Crikey, magic wand and change something. Well, I wouldn't change a great deal about my life. I suppose I would like to change the inequality to people's living situation globally. I think you do need to have an element of that, because people need to aspire, and people would get bored if everyone was the same. But there's too much difference from the people who are very poor to the people who are very rich, and so I'd make that a little bit more equal.
Did you have any major aha moments recently over the last year or so that you would like to share?
Oh, I'm always having aha. We call them BFOs, blinding flashes of the obvious. Trying to think of what one might be, though. We alwaalways have them, but I'm a student of, because I'm a coach. One of the key things for a coach is to be able to ask great questions, and a great question is one that you don't know the answer to. And I don't know when I came to this realization, probably gradually over time, that what I was doing was trying to guide people to my idea of what the answer is. And that's not coaching. And people who ask, when you hear a question like, have you tried this, or have you thought of that, or what do you think? That's not a question. That's your opinion or your statement with a question mark at the end of it. A great question is one that you don't know the answer to. So, yeah, I mean, it's probably in the last couple of years, that has been a great BFO, or a great aha moment for me to really realise that just relax, be present, relax, and the right question will come to you.
Nick, how can people find out more about you?
Well, my website, actioncoach.co.uk/Nik Gray. Now I'm Nick with no C, so N-I-K, and Gray with an A. Also, I'm on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I've set up a couple of groups on Facebook and LinkedIn for the coronavirus, support for local businesses. But I'm running webinars regularly, 2 or 3 a week. I'm running a 90-day planning session every Tuesday between 1 and 3 until this lockdown happens, just to help businesses. Really to help them to create a survival action plan for the business, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and uncertainty comes because they haven't got a plan. The plan definitely gives them a bit more certainty.
Absolutely. I want to thank you very much for taking the time and being in the podcast with me today. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. And there were some big aha moments, or BFOs, as you said. I really liked that. So, any parting words?
Great. You're really putting me on the spot here, Aggie.
What do you mean? I put you on the spot.
You keep asking me these questions. I'm going to be asking the great questions. But yeah, just stay safe and look after each other. You know, my view is that we've got to. The more businesses we can help and save through this, the stronger the economy is going to be, and the quicker we all get through it. So, if you know any business owners that can use my help, then put them in touch with me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nick. I wish you all the very best.
You too, Aggie. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you very much for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate and review Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts. If you want to know more about me and how I can help you, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. You can either search for it on Facebook, or you can simply type bit.ly/PDM group. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.